The dark secret in my grandfather's house. Why did it whistle every night? It was one of those creaky old houses that always seemed to be holding its breath. The floorboards groaned underfoot. Every room was shrouded in shadows, no matter how bright the sun was outside, and there were whispers in the walls that sounded like secrets being shared between the very stones. Secrets that I wasn't supposed to hear. I never thought much of it when I was younger. My grandfather, bless his soul, had been gone for over 20 years now. The house had been in my family forever, so I had grown up here. But these days it felt like a stranger. I was back to settle my grandfather's estate after he passed away. I had so many memories here. My grandfather had died peacefully in his sleep at the ripe old age of 87. We'd been close, him and I, despite the age gap. He was a man of few words, but he was always there for me. In his final years, he'd become more frail, his once strong frame reduced to skin and bones. But his eyes, they still held the glint of the adventure I remembered from my childhood stories. When he was young, he'd traveled the world, collecting trinkets and tales that filled his home. I remember staring at those treasures as a kid, listening to him recount the adventures he'd had. Those stories made the house feel alive. Each room echoed with his laughter, each object a silent witness to his amazing life. But now, it just felt like an empty echo chamber. And then there was the whistling. I hadn't noticed it before, not all these years I'd been visiting. But now, every night I was there just before sunset, the whistling started. It would weave through the rooms, up and down the corridors, sometimes sounding like a mournful cry, sometimes like a taunt. At first, it was just a faint sound, almost drowned out by the wind. But then it grew, becoming louder, more insistent. It felt like the house itself was breathing, sighing out some long-held secret. I tried to ignore it, to convince myself it was just the wind playing tricks. But the wind didn't stop when I closed the windows or the doors. One evening, unable to bear the eerie tune any longer, I decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight, I began to explore the maze of rooms and corridors. As the whistling grew louder, I could feel the presence of whatever was making the sound drawing closer. Then I saw it, a keyhole hidden in the wall. I hadn't noticed it before, perhaps because it blended with the shadows, or maybe it was there only when the light was just right. Curiosity got the better of me. I found a key that fit and slowly opened the door. Inside was a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. Was this the source of the whistling? What lay at the bottom of this forgotten staircase? I took a deep breath and began to descend. The air grew colder as I went down, the temperature dropping noticeably. By the time I reached the bottom, I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. The stairs had opened into a small, cramped room. There was barely enough space to turn around, let alone stand up straight. And in the center was a single metal pipe jutting out of the wall. That was the source of the whistling. But why? What was this pipe doing here? As I ran my fingers over its cold surface, I could feel the vibrations of the whistling all around me. I pressed my ear against it and the sound filled my head. It was a haunting melody, sad and lonely, like a lament for something lost. Suddenly, I knew this was no ordinary pipe. This was a message in a bottle, a silent scream trapped inside the walls for all these years. I wanted to understand what it was saying, to unravel the mystery of the pipe and the house. But I needed help. There was someone who lived for mysteries, someone who could sift through the layers of the past and bring forgotten stories to light. Professor Elmwood was a retired history professor, but his passion for the subject had never faded. His eyes, twinkling behind his spectacles, held the wisdom of countless stories and the thrill of endless discoveries. He'd agreed to meet me at the house, drawn in by the intriguing tale I'd told him over the phone. And now he stood in the cramped room, listening intently to the pipe. "Fascinating," he murmured, stroking his neatly trimmed beard. "This is no ordinary pipe, that's for sure." I could tell by the seriousness in his voice that my suspicions were correct. This was no prank, no figment of my imagination. The house was hiding something. "Can you hear anything else?" he asked, pressing his ear to the pipe. "Like voices or sounds?" I shook my head. "Nothing else, just the whistling." The professor nodded, seeming satisfied with that answer. He spent hours combing through the house, examining everything from the tiniest keyhole to the oldest floorboard. He pored over maps and documents, searching for any clue that could shed light on the house's history. Meanwhile, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that had settled over me. The whistling seemed to grow louder now, more insistent. I paced the rooms restlessly, unable to focus on anything. I just had to know what secrets this house was holding. Finally, the professor called me over, his face illuminated by the soft glow of his lamp as he pored over an old leather-bound book. "I think I found something," he said, his voice hushed with excitement. "There's an entry from 1890. It mentions a strange whistling sound that could be heard echoing through the house at dusk. Apparently, it drove some tenants insane." He looked up, his eyes sparkling. "It seems we're not the only ones who've heard it." I felt a mix of fear and fascination. To know that others had heard the whistling, that it wasn't just me, brought a sense of relief, but also a deeper chill. I knew then that we were on the right track. This mystery was leading us somewhere, but where? And as the days turned into weeks, the professor's investigation deepened. He uncovered more stories, more whispers from the past that pieced together the puzzle of the house. We discovered that the house had once been home to a family torn apart by a dark secret, a secret that had taken root in the very foundation of the house. The parents had kept their distance, whispering in the shadows and sealing themselves in their attic room with that mysterious pipe. And then there was their daughter, a young woman named Lara, who roamed the halls, forever searching for her parents' love and affection. She poured her heart out to the walls, sharing her dreams and fears, only to be met with silence. The house absorbed her pain, her longing, turning it into the whistling that echoed through the halls. It was a heartbreaking tale, one that tugged at my soul and resonated in the silence of the house. But it didn't end there. There was more to the story, more to the house than I could have ever imagined. As I sat in the cramped room, the professor's words echoing in my ears, I realized that I wasn't just unraveling a mystery, I was uncovering a piece of my own family's history. And as the final piece of the puzzle fell into place, I understood. The house wasn't just a witness to the past, it was a keeper of souls, forever bound to the whispers of its former inhabitants.